Welcome to this episode of Coffee Time Doodles. Today we're going to talk and draw Resident Evil. So pick up a hot drink, relax, and enjoy. Did you notice the Umbrella Corp lights in the background? Who likes spooky games? I do. Like I said in every previous video, I'm a big horror fan and a Resident Evil fan. I played all of them except for 5 and 6, regrettably. I might still play them for the story, but after Resident Evil 4, which was okay, I decided that I didn't like the direction that the franchise was taking, becoming more of an action-adventure game than horror, so I stayed away from the franchise for a while. Honestly, game and movie directors rarely truly get horror fans. Like you don't understand what makes a good horror ambience if you're not a horror fan. So don't give these horror projects for people who don't have the passion for horror. For the past decade, only a few developers approached the horror genre successfully. It took an indie game developer to elevate the horror genre by itself, and that's Frictional Games, the guys who made Amnesia and Soma. They get it. This game is all passion, despair, atmosphere, a masterpiece in its genre. Shortly after, Red Barrels came out with another surprising indie horror game called Outlast. These two developers were the only ones that got it for a long time. They got it. You know, the horror thing that nobody else seems to have gotten since Silent Hill 2. I say it often and I'll say it again, there isn't enough good horror content for the horror fans out there. So we often have to wait years to get a good movie or a good game, forcing us into consuming subpar content in the meantime. That sucks. So anyways, the horror genre had two indie developers at the top for 4 years, until Capcom decided to wear their old genes back and give horror a modern attempt. They took everything that the horror fans loved and anticipated from the unfinished Silent Hill PT, with a little bit of the helplessness and despair from Amnesia, and the stressful chasing from Outlast. Mix that in your spaghetti sauce and add AAA visuals, and you may get what may just be the greatest horror game of all time, Resident Evil 7. I don't know, it's highly debatable. Some will say Silent Hill 2 or Resident Evil 2, but that's so far away in the past. We needed a way to adapt horror to modern tech. I think Resident Evil 7 changed the whole scene and elevated the genre. And they really put horror back on the map for everyone to see and try. And that's fantastic. Resident Evil 7 is the first game in probably over 20 years that I've played more than once. I played it 3 times in a row, hard mode, speedrun style. It was that great and innovative. It was filling all the holes that the horror movie scene was leaving me with. So with this game, I was hoping that Capcom learned a few things from the risk they took. First of all, the first-person view is fine. And secondly, there's a market for pure horror. Keep making your next title scary, because there's plenty of action-adventure games out there. We don't need that. Not from you. So when they announced Resident Evil 2 Remake, I was so excited. They have the perfect recipe, the perfect engine. They just had to redo Resident Evil 2 with this new setup, which they did perfectly. 10 out of 10. So freaking fun. The game was about as awesome as 7. But honestly, still a little edge on 7 for me, for how fresh the story and the setting was. And then we all thought, okay, if they nailed Resident Evil 2 Remake like this, and it was still really scary with the third-person view on top of it, they have to remake Resident Evil 3. Come on. The engine is in motion, all you need to do is to throw some gas at it and let's go. And bam! Resident Evil 3 announced. It comes out the same day as this video, and I could not be more excited. I played the classic Resident Evil 2 and 3 when they came out on PlayStation 1. They were some of the best titles on the PlayStation, and by far the best horror games, if we don't look at Silent Hill 2 for a second. Which classic Resident Evil is your favorite, let's say from 1 to 6? Mine is actually the third one. It's very close with the second one, but I just ended up playing the third one so many times, and even played the minigames with the mercenary challenges. Now that I'm asking myself the question, I think Jill may be my favorite character. Even though they eventually made Leon a pretty solid and deep character over the course of the franchise, Jill is an independent badass with nerves of steel. She's cheerful but determined. I like how casual she looks in Resident Evil 3. The reason for that is she's just a normal civilian in the game. She's a former officer and member of STARS, aka Special Tactics and Rescue Service, and was the main character in Resident Evil 1 in her STARS uniform. But in this game she's just a normie, and that's why she's just wearing casual clothes. In the remake, they went with a very realistic approach with her casual look. She looks great and she's not too over-sexualized. Like you don't need to be sexualized to be attractive, so that's a very good touch. I feel offended when they try too hard to give us fan service. The look of the characters need to fit with the events going on in the setting, it's important for immersion. Now, which game is the scariest? I have to say, the atmosphere in Resident Evil 2 was genius, with the little squeaky rusty fences moving with the wind and the distant sounds of dogs and zombies. They nailed it. Resident Evil 7's setting was extremely scary. Not that I would ever be scared, I'm a horror maniac. I live for this stuff. Come on. It's a horrifying setting. Stuck with this insane family, being chased around by the daddy in the house, super scary. And that's a reason why my prediction is that the remake of Resident Evil 3 might be the scariest of all. Because throughout the whole game, you're being chased by this bio-organic weapon called Nemesis, and he furiously wants Jill dead, since she's targeted as a former member of STARS. This is gonna be scary. I'm gonna eat this game alive. I didn't even play the demo, or looked at it. I need to have the purest first run on hard mode, that you can watch on my stream by the way at twitch.tv/damadness, wink wink. Yes, playing these games on hard mode truly enhances the stress and fear factor. It made me enjoy the remake of Resident Evil 2 a lot. I was fighting for my life and for my bullets the whole game. Oh god, fighting for bullets. That is very Resident Evil-esque, isn't it? What else is Resident Evil-esque? Not being able to open the green door because you don't have the clover key, even though you have a freaking shotgun and a rocket launcher in your bag. Or the ever anxiety-inducing management of your ink ribbons, which you desperately need to save the game. And then there's the famous Raccoon City green herbs that you find. You suddenly start becoming a freaking botanist and chemist, mixing that shit up. Green leaf with the red leaf. That's probably why the only items that we carry for half the games are weeds and a lighter. Relieves the stress from the zombie apocalypse, if you know what I mean. And thank God they improved the voice acting over time. And if you thought that was bad in Resident Evil 2, please go play or emulate the classic original Resident Evil 1 on PlayStation. The voice acting was legendary. Look it up. Overall, I'm happy that Capcom saved the franchise and brought it back brilliantly and convincingly. I'm so happy to get to revisit my favorite old games in this reimagined and highly realistic setting. Oh, and I can't wait to be chased by Nemesis. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As a big fan of the series, I was really excited to paint a Resident Evil artwork with Jill. And the same thing happened here with the painting as it did with my Dark Souls episode, where I started with no direction of where I want to go with my artwork, and I ended up like repainting the whole thing in more of like a rough brush style that I like. And this seems to be my current style that I'm going for. So this is what I'm gonna do for the next episode, which will be about Final Fantasy freaking 7. So I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.